It's me, once again, traveling, connecting the dots to our family. Last week, I visited Biloxi, Mississippi, connecting the dots. I had the opportunity to meet some of our DNA cousins on the Emory line. The Emory line is really a Native American line that traces back to the sisters, Susanna and Mary Emory. And so I'm now in Kansas City, Missouri, following up on that same research, connecting the dots to our Native American, Creole, indigenous women who have lost their identity because they had to choose whether they were black or white. I'm all over the world connecting the dots, one cousin at a time. Your cousin Eunice, Family Tree Buff. I'm so honored to be in the company of other family that I found that I'm just meeting today. I am so pleased to meet my family, and I'll let them introduce themselves to you.
I'm Katrina Emory. I am the daughter of James Emory. He is from Alexandria, and the Emory family is from the Colfax, Louisiana area. I'm also related to Young.
This is the oldest stuff that I could really find. And now we've got their son coming over here. I'm sorry, they're from William Hembry and Mary Grant, who was Susanna. They had a daughter named Elizabeth Emory in the Anigila, the long-haired clan. And I'm trying to figure out if this is the Elizabeth Emory here that married the Buffington.
She had a child with Buffington. Elizabeth Emory had her first child with Ezekiel.
And that was that Mary Buffington, her first child, 1760. Is that these here?
She had an Elizabeth by him. She had an Elizabeth by him.
That was the Susanna Chalker. Is that how she went by? Elizabeth Raincrow? Susanna Chalker? Okay. This all down here is actually all under Captain John Hellfire Rogers. And that's that Scottish trader. And Jeannie Dew was his stepdaughter from the previous marriage.
From the previous marriage, yes. But Jeannie Dew also was the daughter of one of the clans, wasn't she?
Yes, she was Twisted Long-Hair Clan, Anigila, and she was daughter of Robert Talonsky, Chief Jolly, married, and that's the chieftain. So Elizabeth, she was the daughter of one of those twins. Were they twins or were they sisters?
They were sisters.
Okay.
And so when her mother died, she got with her stepfather. He was her stepfather.
Supposedly, he was her stepfather, and supposedly he raised her because he went with the early settlers. This was when they left with the early settlers. And so then he had a child by her. And I'm still trying to look at that, like, how old was she as his stepdaughter when she's having his child?
Like 9, 10. They were very young. 9, 10, 11.
There's no possible way for this to be love and consent and there's no possible way.
When I say family, I'm just talking to my siblings.
That's where
of course, I got
Jeannie Dew's daughter being Susanna Miller, also known as Stella
mom's
Rioter.
in Virginia. And,
Scary. For years. So
And she harvests the seeds.
yes. I raised these. They're from 4 different Cherokee heirloom varieties. The closest ones are the dark red, coming from the Bloody Butcher, and the the light white from the White Eagle, and the blue, and but I grew one individual strain each year for 4 years, and then I grew a row of each. And that year they crossed, and I got a lot of different rainbow corns, and one of my favorites are these little tiny purple gems. Wow. And so each year I just try to plant one. Now these here, this is one of my favorite. It doesn't look like much from up top, but if you pick up the individual kernels and you look, they have hearts, they have faces, they have shapes of Africa. They have each one of these individual kernels. Wow. If you look at them, they're really, really unique. Like angels.
Oh yeah.
Okay, there's all different kinds. They're all different things. So I think I'll just let you pick whichever kinds you think we might want to plant this year, and that's what we'll do.
We gotta try one of those.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you read?
Yep. Anything you feel. We probably have room here for about 30 or 40. And if you want to pick out 30 or 40, any of the rows you want to put them in, and it'll come up. I'll have them out in tins.
Wow.
And I'll take good care of them, and we'll have some seed for next year.
Hey.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You plant them anywhere you want, and I'll fill in whatever you don't plant with more corn, because you need at least like 4 foot by 4 foot for corn.
Okay.
Yeah, Don't worry about stepping on anything. It's all good.
I am so honored to be here. I'm actually on the land, on the soil of my cousin, of my DNA match Cherokee cousin. Something is calling me back to the earth. And I know that's where that spirit is coming from. It's calling me back to the earth and has been calling me to her. And finally, after I think 6 years, we're finally here. So we're planning to do together. Connecting the dots to my Native American indigenous roots using genealogical records from the 5 tribes and DNA analysis, I have traced back to ancestors among the 5 civilized tribes, discovering Cherokee, Lumbee, Creek, Muskogee, Choctaw ancestors who were traumatized through the many Trail of Tears. The various clans had different experiences relating to their roundup and forced removal. Many left family members behind who voluntarily gave up their Native American identity in order to stay on ancestral lands. Some hid in the woods and the swamps until the U.S. Army left. My DNA story is connecting the dots to the original people of this land. As I've studied African American history, I found that most African Americans and Native Americans born in the United States have ancestral ties in the Caribbean countries, primarily because of the slave trade. Captured Native Americans were brought to the Carolinas to be sold and were often sold to the Caribbean, where they would be less likely to escape and return to their village. And Charleston, South Carolina became a major port for exporting enslaved Indians and importing enslaved African Americans who were coming from Caribbean plantations that were used as the point of seasoning or breaking in of the enslaved Africans before they were continued on to the United States. This included the separation of family members, siblings, parents, cousins being left behind on the islands. The list of tribal remnants who were at some point recorded as mulatto include the Creek, the Muskogee, the Choctaw, the Lumbee, and Saponi of North Carolina, and the Muskogee, and others. Our roots run deep. Find your people, connect the dots. The true bloodline, that's what's placed on me to do. Talk to your people. Talk to our people and tell them about the trauma that's passed down in all our lines, our Native American lines, our white Scottish lines, our German lines, our African American, from the African Congo lines that blended. And now we're at war over the color of our skin. But what is your bloodline? What's in your heart? God said, love everyone. I'm your cousin, Eunice Buffington, the family tree buff.